So he might have the perfect plan, but most people don't have the perfect execution of that plan because life gets in the way. And I think that's really why we've built what we've built. Sure, you could probably ask ChatGPT or Claude or whatever your favorite agent is, what should I do instead? But that doesn't have the mechanism and the mechanics to automatically update and adapt your plan.
Welcome back for episode 3 of the Racing Time Podcast. I'm Nathan, your host, and today I'm sharing my interview with Caroline Shoemaker. Shu is an everyday athlete, tech founder, and entrepreneur. She is currently balancing a busy personal and professional calendar, which include launching a startup and wedding planning, all while training for a full-distance Ironman this fall. Shu and I talk in depth about habit stacking, the power of 10-minute workouts, nutrition, and visualization tools. We also spend a good portion of our conversation talking about how AI training tools, like the hybrid app which she is building, can be leveraged to help you get the most out of training. I thought this was a particularly interesting piece of our conversation given its relevance due to the sharp rise of AI over the past year and the general speculation about whether AI tools will eventually replace trainers and coaches or if they will simply serve to enhance what is currently being offered. I hope you take away as much from this conversation as I did. Okay, Shu, welcome to the Racing Time Podcast.
Nathan, hello. Thanks for having me. Super
Yeah,
excited to be here.
thanks for being on. I really appreciate it. So right out the gate, I'm just gonna go with the background into your nickname of Shu. We were just talking about this pre-recording, and I know that people may ask, and so I just figured we'd get that out of the way right off the jump. And yeah,
Yeah, it's usually people's first question. My last name is Shoemaker, shoe and then maker. So that's where the nickname originates from. My real name is Caroline Shoemaker, my first name. So most people in my grade were there's a lot of people named Caroline, so shoe it was, and I it just kind of stuck, and I like it. It's differentiating. Um, yeah, that's kind of it.
yeah. I wondered if it came from like sports, right? Because like a lot of sports
Mostly
teams
sports.
call the nickname
Yeah.
like the last name, right? Like, hey, Shoemaker, get over here, or like
Yeah, and it's funny because so my sister she's older, so she went by Shoe, and then I was Little Shoe, and then she's 6 years older. So when she graduated, then I also got to graduate to be Shoe instead of Little Shoe. Um, yeah, so just kind of funny.
Yeah. Well, I can relate to that. Funny enough, so my uncle is Nathan as well.
Mm.
He has Down syndrome. He's like one of my favorite people of all time. And so he was Big Nate and I was Little Nate growing up. And so to this day, when we're in family gatherings, I'm still Little Nate and he's Big Nate.
Oh,
I think
that's funny.
he always gets Big Nate though. So there's no graduating for me.
That's awesome.
Yeah. Well, cool. So again, kind of offline before when we first met, we were talking a lot about the show's thesis of how to improve in endurance sport as an everyday athlete, especially given that meaningful improvement can be hard to come by when you're balancing family life, right? Your partner, your spouse, your children, your friends. You're balancing the demands of a career, and then there's just the blanket statement of adulting, right? Like
Hmm.
that encapsulates
Definitely.
everything else from car registrations to passports to doctor's appointments and everything in between, right?
100%.
So you definitely fall into this category of someone who has a very busy life. You're launching a startup. You're training for a full Ironman.
Hmm.
You had mentioned you just got you just got a dog.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
then on top of all of that, if that wasn't busy enough, you're also planning a wedding.
That's correct. Yes. So just a few things.
A very small number of things, small life events.
Yes.
How are you balancing all of that and again like with the pursuit of a full Ironman?
Hmm. I think this is a great topic. I love chatting about this because in today's day and age, you see all these fitness influencers on Instagram, TikTok, etc. And like, well, they just have all this time. And so like I can't really be like them. They have all the time in the world to do this. So I just appreciate you putting this together to be able to chat about it. I think in any given moment, you have to figure out what you want to prioritize. You can't do it all. And so, yes, you just listed out all these things that I'm doing, but in any given week, there's a certain something's got to give. So maybe in my deload week, for example, which would be a week that I do a little bit less training, I spend more time with our dog Charlie. And or maybe it's I have to work. So launching a startup, we can get into that later. But it requires more time. Well, then how can I get my training done? Maybe my sleep has got to give. So I think acknowledging the fact that you can't do it all actually helps you to make sure you can achieve most of those things. Um, so I'll pause there, but I think that's one of the most important parts.
Yeah, it's almost like you have to know what to say no to say
Exactly.
to know what to you have to say yes to start.
Exactly.
So what systems do you have in place to kind of make sure you do stay on track? Because I mean, I know that you mentioned sometimes like you, I mean, I relate to that a lot. Something has to give.
Hmm.
Um, and sleep is tricky because cognitively, physically, like if
Yeah.
you're getting less than certain amounts of sleep, like you're more prone to get injured, you're going to be less
Hmm.
sharp. So, yeah, again, what systems do you have in place to make sure that you're not maybe overly stretched in one area? Because I think maybe there is an illusion of like balance is
Hmm.
not necessarily full balance. It's like there is what is that, like a spider chart where like
Yes.
it kind of ebbs and flows at any given time.
Yes, 100%. So as far as systems in place, I think one cheat code that I have is I have a bike trainer. And so I actually can do a lot of work on the while I'm sitting on the bike. I have my laptop there. And so I can do zone two and get that training done while I'm taking meetings or just coding. Like in these days, you've got these agents and voice agents, so I can just chat as I'm developing. um, so that's definitely one thing. I think as far as I usually do prioritize sleep for all those reasons that you mentioned, and so that's why then maybe instead of doing my bike before work, I actually am doing it with work.
Mm,
um, and I think that uh, yeah, it's like consistency is what matters more. Like that is the most important thing is how consistent you are. And realization that I'd had or I'd heard somewhere is you don't need every workout to be a hero workout,
mm.
meaning you don't need to every workout to be an hour and a half. If you only have 20 minutes, that's better than nothing. I think some people, and myself included, fall into the trap of, well, I missed the time window. I only have 10 minutes. That's not, I can't do it. You can do it. You have 10 minutes. That's 10 minutes more than nothing. And so I think by having the consistency, like that system of a routine of saying, I'm getting up at this time and I'm going to work out, and maybe I have more work, so I can only work out for 10 minutes. Okay, well, I got up at this time, I worked out for 10 minutes, now I'm starting work. So I think that system is the routine that you put in place to make sure you can achieve that consistency.
I love that. I actually have a couple follow-up questions. My first one
Hmm.
is what is your setup look like? So with a bike trainer, and you mentioned kind of coding, is it like just a laptop sitting on a stand, or
Yeah.
yeah,
I've basically a bike desk. Yeah, it's like a rolly desk, small that you can put a laptop on, and it's a bike desk because it kind of goes around the wheel, so it kind of can be right above your handlebars.
yep.
And yeah, I'm just inside, like it's behind me actually. I don't know if you could probably it's blurry, but there's some desks back there. And it's easy enough to take your bike on and off the trainer.
I love that.
But
So which trainer do you use too, and has that switched with time?
um, I've used the Kicker Core from
Cool.
Wahoo. Um, had it for about 5 years now. No other people had it, so I got it. It's been working great. Can't
Yeah,
complain.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Just curious. I like
Yeah.
your so I like to kind of get the review of what people are using. The other thing that I was just going to follow up on was, um, this idea of everyone has 10 minutes.
Hmm.
When you find that, you are kind of struggling to fit in time, like what's your go-to for like a quick 10, 15, 20 minute, something is better than nothing type of workout?
Yeah, I think for me, it's actually been lifting. I'm fortunate that we have a little basement room. We have like a squat rack, dumbbells, and pretty much a full setup for a lift. So a lot of times, actually, what myself and my partner will do is if we're grilling, we put some stuff on the grill and then we go do some sets and then check it on it. So usually that's when you have those 10 minutes, and you can get a set of, say, squats or deadlifts in 10 minutes. You get a full set. So that I think is really my go-to because you're working a full muscle group in that time frame.
Yeah, I really love that you highlighted this because this has been something that has been on my mind all of this year, where historically I've fallen into that trap of I miss the window in the morning. It's a busy day. I don't have time. And I kind of have come to the realization through making that mistake just over and over and over that my if I put my health in second position in my life, like everything else
Hmm.
kind of falls apart. And like the reality is like everyone really does have 10 minutes for a walk, a quick run, a yoga, a lift, right? Like
Right. I
um yeah.
and I think you get caught in the trap of I say unfortunately, but like for my job, I have to be on social media, and it's unfortunate because I hate spending time there. But it is you realize how much of a time trap it is.
Hmm.
Uh, I have an app that I use to basically set a time limit on how long I'm on the app. So before I go in to Instagram, for example, I have to say I'm only going to be on here for 5 minutes, um, and then it will like shut off the app. It is insane how quickly that 5 minutes goes.
Hmm.
And you talk about the time, like having 10 minutes, everyone has 10 minutes. People say I don't have 10 minutes, but you've been on TikTok probably for 20 or 30 minutes without realizing it. It just goes. And so you really do have that time if you put your devices down.
Yeah, if you're willing to replace it and just be like
Exactly.
actually track where it's going. I also really love that you kind of talked about like habit stacking, right?
Hmm.
So it's so hard to fit everything in compartmentally, but it's nice that yeah, you and your partner are lifting together. Does your partner like do other training with you?
Yes, and actually, he works with me too, so he's one of my co-founders as well. So we honestly do most things together. He we originally did 70.3s together. And now he had a bunch of knee surgeries and injuries. So he's more training for high rocks, but we definitely do mostly lift and do long bike rides together, which is nice. That's another thing for me that I'm fortunate. Our time that we spend together are like we have quality time, but we're also training. So we kind of not necessarily killing two birds with one stone. It's probably not the right way to put it, but we get to spend quality time like while working out.
No, I mean it definitely helps, right? Like where possible, if your job allows, like take the work call on a walk, right?
Exactly.
Or yeah, I mean if possible, habit stacking is super helpful.
Hmm.
So you kind of mentioned just really quickly your your background of getting into triathlon. Did you come from a sporting background before getting into triathlons, and then how did you get into doing the 70.3 races?
Hmm. Originally, I came from an athletic background. I played sports all growing up, soccer, swimming, lacrosse. I played soccer and lacrosse in high school and lacrosse in college, just at the club level. And because of those experiences, I had swimming, I had running from sports. And during COVID, actually, that's when I got a bike. Wanted to be outside. It was a great way to do that. With the other two sports, I was able to combine them to do a triathlon. Actually, some of my coworkers, my old coworkers, I used to work at Whoop. That's really what got me into it. They were doing triathlons, and I was gonna do or my first 70.3 with some of them, and started to fall in love with it. It's the nice mix of three different things. I sometimes can get bored pretty quickly, so it's nice to constantly be changing it up.
Yeah, well, I relate to that as well. Growing up, I played all the sports, you know, baseball, basketball, um, track, cross country, golf, you know, you name it. I was probably too ADHD to be any good at any one of them, but just like I loved all of the sports in their season, and so
Hmm.
I relate. Any one of those things, maybe alone. Uh, I don't know if I have the attention span for it, but like the mix
Fair.
is so fun for me.
And I think another thing about triathlons too is you see people. of much higher age groups doing them. And so it's something that you can continue for a very long time and you can continuously get better at. I think the 35 to 39 age group is one of the top age groups,
Hmm.
which is typically you think of sports, you think, okay, younger is better. Your prime is in your early 20s. Well, actually, in endurance sports, your prime is older. So it's something to look forward to and something like, oh, I can continue this for a very long time.
Yeah, that was actually one of the things that I noticed in my first race that was so refreshing going into it is I thought like this is for elite athletes only. And the definition of elite is like changed in my mind because like truly every age and every body type was there.
Mhm.
And I would be getting passed by like age group 7 like 60-year-old
Yeah,
women because
it's
I
crazy.
personally wasn't fit like in the fitness that where I am today when I first got into the sport. And it was crazy. Like it was crazy to be like, wow, an age group 60-year-old women, like they didn't just beat me, they crushed me.
Yeah, and I don't know if
So
you notice some races, they'll make you Sharpie your age on your right ankle. And so you're on the bike and you see these people pass you and you know that there's a 7-year-old passing you. And you're like, how is this possible?
yeah, yeah. It's like it's both demoralizing and motivating at the same time. Like, okay, if I stick with something long enough, that person is my goal.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. So you've done a couple 70.3s. Do you have a favorite at this point?
I love Tremblant up in Canada. I think that was a really beautiful race. It was somewhat challenging with hills, but at the end of the day, it really wasn't that hilly. Yeah, it was just honestly like a really well done race and really beautiful.
Okay, I'll have to check that one out. I like to have them be like somewhat of a destination
Mhm.
for me as well. And then which full Ironman are you currently training for?
So I'm currently training for the one in Sacramento, Ironman, California. I did Arizona last year. Unfortunately, it's the last time they are doing Arizona, so there won't be any more races there. Um, so Sacramento this year.
Okay. And are you going into that race with a specific goal in mind, given that you've already done one full? Is this a I'm just going to do it again, or I want to see a massive improvement?
More the latter. I want to see a massive improvement. I would like to go an hour faster, which is probably ambitious, but with habit stacking and consistency, I think it's possible.
Yeah, how are you breaking that down? Like how are you making that big of a jump seem
Mhm.
manageable?
So it depends like where you want to get that time from. For me, my biggest weakness is the bike. I think it's also the faster you go on the bike, the more time you'll save. It is like the fastest element of the three. So that's really where I feel comfortable putting in uh, saving that amount of time. Um, Using like Hybrid is our company and using our app, we can get into this later, but we have a basically a coach in your pocket. So I chat with it a lot about like what is possible, what's not possible. And based on that conversation with my AI coach, uh, I know that it's possible to lose that amount of time on the bike if I can output a little bit more watts. So without going, I guess, too deep in the cycling space, if I can push myself a little bit harder, I can save a lot of time. And I believe that I can push myself harder and get to that level with a couple months of training more.
Yeah, what are your like go-to workouts? Because and I guess maybe just for context, I'm kind of in that same boat. So when I first got into the 70.3 races, my goal was just to finish it in like sub 7. Like I wasn't that
Hmm.
fit. I was kind of opposite to it to a lot of people during COVID, where most people got more active. I was kind of in a job that I was working 14, 15-hour days. I got a little heavy and I was way out of shape. I like would tell myself that I liked biking, but if I went back on my Strava, it's like, oh, I biked 12 times that summer. Like that's like nothing.
Yeah.
And so I got into it based on like this random invite from a friend, and then when I crossed the finish line, I knew that I like it was in my blood that I had to do it
Hmm.
again. So I did it. I did another one the next year, and I dropped just under an hour from
That's
my
awesome.
time. And then now this year I have another ambitious step, and I agree with you. Like the where I can make it up is the bike, and
Hmm.
so my curiosity is how are you going about getting better at the bike? Because I'm also trying to get better at the bike. What do those
Yeah.
sessions look like?
I think so. I think there's probably three elements. One is the training and actual, like, what are those sessions look like? The second would be uh, manipulations on your bike, so more aero, and how can you save power without actually outputting any more effort? How can you reduce time? And then I think the third is nutrition,
Mm,
which definitely gets overlooked by many people, but is probably the most important part. So on the first, as far as training. I think it's important to have a threshold session once a week, a VO2 max session once a week, and then a long ride once a week. So in your VO2 sessions, spending like 3 to 5 minutes or even probably 3 to 5 minutes intervals with the same amount of time as rest and do, 8 intervals, for example. And then your threshold intervals, probably working up to a 2 by 20 or 3 by 10, 2 by 15 are examples of intervals you can do. Basically, you want to uh, sustain power for a longer time period. That will help you to like sustain a higher power for a longer bike, for a 3 hour bike, for a 6 hour bike.
mm.
So those are key sessions that I don't want to miss. It's better to cut some zone two, in my opinion, than it is to cut those sessions.
Mm. Interesting,
Um,
interesting.
yeah, because that's how you're gonna increase. Like that's how you're gonna increase your power. Um, and for non-cyclists listening, power is what matters. Really, like your power to weight ratio. That's will determine how fast you can go.
Yeah, no, it's definitely something that, like, again, as being a very casual cyclist and trying to take that next step, I feel like I've heard all of these things, and I'm now just in that mode of like, okay, now what does that mean? Like
Hmm.
practically, right? Taking the verbiage to practice is I think where sometimes the mystery is, and I think
Hmm.
where sometimes the, like, do I need a coach? Can I rely on, Chat GPT or Claude, or in this case, again, we'll talk a little bit more about this later, like an app like Hybrid, to
Hmm.
help coach me along, to understand, like, what, yeah, again, what is the AI telling me and what does it actually mean, is like translating that can
Yeah.
sometimes be tough for the everyday person.
And everyone's different too and has different strengths. So some people might not need to work as much on their, call it VO2 max, like, high intensity cardiac intervals because they're really competent in that. But they can't do is they cannot sustain it for a long time. And so, you know, then threshold intervals would be more appropriate for them. Um, but I do think the other important part here is nutrition. Uh, you've probably heard about high carb and
Hmm.
the how big high carb is, which really just means eating a lot of sugar, a lot of carbohydrates, and there's this evidence to suggest that more carbs you eat, the better you'll perform. Again, it's different for everyone and everyone's body, but typically it's between 60 to 120 grams of carbs an hour, which can seem like a lot, but for me, I notice performance gains when I have enough fuel.
Yeah, what's your favorite source of those carbs?
Personally, I tried to be more natural, so dates are actually my favorite source.
No, that's great. Yeah, I know
Um,
it changes for everybody, and I think, again, one of the premises of the show is, if you're buying the goos all the time, like, they can be quite expensive, right? For
exactly.
every session, like three, four of them, and they're $4 a pop, and
Exactly. They've
right,
gotten
like,
very expensive. And there's natural sources of sugar. The goos are they can be great and they can be great for people. They're quick. I do like them a lot. But at the same time, they're expensive and they're just sugar, processed sugar. So why can't I get natural sugar and use that? That's might be better for me.
yeah, no, exactly. Um, I'm curious to know what aerodynamic things you've done to
Hmm.
your setup, because I think that's another one of those areas that can be somewhat of a mystery, and has been a mystery to me. And then again, like, how are you balancing the changes made to your bike with sometimes their marginal gains, right? So, like, the
Yeah.
in I'm not like a professional in aerodynamics, but from what I can tell from what the internet has told me, it's like aerodynamics works on a cube, right? So the
Hmm.
faster you go, the more important the aerodynamics become. And
Correct.
so, yeah, what minor changes have you made that have made a huge difference?
Yeah, I would say one is aero bars. So ideally for a triathlon, you would have a tri bike in which you're arms would be in an arrow position, so they're out in front of you. And if you are riding a road bike, like I've previously ridden road bikes, I would get tri bars to put on so that I could be in that arrow position,
Hmm.
as a much less expensive way to get into that position. So that's number one. Number two is moving water bottle cages. So they should not be on the frame of your bike. That increases a lot of drag. So I got a mount to put them behind my on my saddle or my bike seat.
Hmm.
That has helped a lot. Um, that's probably the second most important thing. And then I haven't done this myself, but I do want to do this for this Ironman, would be a more aero helmet. Um, it's something that is a little bit more costly, but for a long time period, like an Ironman distance, that can prove a good 5 to 10 watts, which does add up.
Yeah, that's up over time, right? I think yeah,
Mhm.
that's what I always struggle with. Um, Again, the premise of the show is how do you do it with limited time and sometimes limited resources, right? Like you when you
Right.
rock up to a triathlon, I've done the quick calculations, and I'm like, there's no less than like $12 million sitting in the parking lot, right? Between the bikes, the
Absolutely.
shoes, the Garmin watches, the gear, the trainers at home, and it's probably even more than that. So all of us were definitely supporting the industry
Absolutely.
quite
Yeah.
quite quite strongly. Um, have you explored any of the other things like gosh, what do they call it? Like calf compression?
Personally, I haven't. I've heard good things about calf compression, but I personally haven't.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
I
haven't. I
think
haven't either yet, but
one thing I do is I take creatine. That's hot these days. I think a lot of people do. But I take creatine in my bottle in the Ironman before the run, to help with my muscular endurance on that run. Maybe it's placebo, maybe, but it helps me, so I won't discount it.
yeah, no, creatine's awesome. I take creatine as well, and I definitely have seen both physical and cognitive benefits from it. It's one of the more studied
Hmm.
supplements. Yeah, so obviously, yeah, I'm a big believer of creatine as well. How are you um, managing expectations, like with the goal in mind to drop an hour from your Ironman time? Like you said, that's a pretty good goal. I think
Hmm.
it's a worthy goal to chase. And one of the things that I struggle with is kind of in the same again, it's just the same vein. I'm trying to drop 30 minutes from my half Ironman time, which when you think of like maybe it's I don't know how fast you do yours, so maybe it's not the exact same because there's kind of diminishing ability
Hmm.
to drop time, but like 30 minutes for me is pretty aggressive. And I'm trying to balance my expectation with just showing up being fit enough to
Yeah.
accomplish that and recognizing that on the day I can't control some of the circumstances. I can't control weather. I can't control the ocean current. I can't control if I get a bike tire puncture. I can't control like sometimes you show up and you have the wrong gel at the right time and there's GI issues. Like,
Hmm.
how do you think about those? Like, yeah, the process of managing expectations, but also, I mean, if we're being honest, you do want to have a certain time at the end of the day.
Yeah, I think that's a great question. I think there's two ways. One, I think there's preparation for all of those scenarios that you've mentioned, and having the preparation and the visualization. Honestly, I visualize all of my transitions, so that there are things that you can't control, but you technically can control your reaction in that scenario, and you can prepare yourself for that reaction that you'll have. So I think that is one. I think two is also in a similar vein as realizing all the work that to get to that time or that goal that you have is done before the start line. Sure, of course, it matters the performance on that day, but that performance is purely driven by the work going into it. Um, so that's something I have to keep reminding myself as well. Is if I want to achieve that, it's not going to come on race day. It's going to come in the months leading up to race day. And I think those are where you have to align expectations. The other stuff, the things that you mentioned on race day, it's sort of a mute point because if you didn't do the work before, it's not going to happen.
Yeah. Do you when you talk about visualization, that's actually something that I'm really new to. Like I've started doing
Mhm.
some visualization, and I think partly because prior to this will be my third 70.3 race. So prior to that, I just didn't. I don't know if I had enough context to do visualization. Like
Mhm.
I hadn't done it. Going into my first one, I was so nervous. I had no idea what transition looked like, where to put my stuff, how to put my gear on. Like I was a just a new entrant to a sport that like I was making way more complicated,
Mhm.
but I just couldn't imagine it. Like there was no visualization possible. But now that I've done it twice, I can start visualizing, what those zones look like. Are you doing your visualization practices just during workouts, or is that like a separate thing?
Honestly, separate. Usually before I go to bed, or in the week or so leading up to the race, I'll visualize what the transition looks like. I think you bring up a good point. If you've never done it, it does make it very hard to visualize. I had in my before my first race, I was looking at YouTube videos trying to understand like where do you go, what happens, um, for that particular race itself as well. It's easier said than done. Maybe there's not that much content out there, but that definitely helped me. I would also practice my transition. I assumed I would have, a towel with all the items, and I, in my like house, just pretended and practiced with those. Um, but I think usually I'll just visualize before I go to bed. I'll think about a specific thing, whether maybe that's someone kicking off my goggles or someone punching me in the face in the water, and what will my reaction be? Like, what's the worst case scenario, and then what would I do if that happens?
Yeah, I'm curious to know, have you given much thought to like the practical things that you would do if that does happen? Like I've heard of the goggles thing, right? Like getting kicked in the face and losing goggles. Do you have an extra pair of goggles like wrapped around your neck, or
I used to, I don't anymore. Reason being is I have I have noticed you can tread water for a second, catch your breath, calm yourself, clear your goggles, put them back on. What will that cost you? Maybe 30 seconds. That's
sure?
nothing. We're not, I'm not a pro. I'm an amateur age grouper that I do this for fun. So
Yeah.
30 seconds for me, that's fine. I'm willing to pause for that.
Yeah, and I guess in that case too, like you're probably double capping, so you're not losing your goggles; they're just getting
Correct.
jarred, right? So yeah,
Exactly.
that makes a lot of sense. Um, how are you maximizing your sessions so that like again with all that you have going on in life,
Hmm.
how do you maximize your sessions? And again, this was something you had brought up before of like, I think you had said like the minimal effective dose or something to that
Yes.
tune.
Hmm. Um, Yeah, it is exactly as you said. What is the minimum effective dose that you need for your body to meet the adaptation you're looking for? So, for example, let's say you have an interval workout. Let's just call it 5 intervals. Um, and you're starting to cap out at three. Like three of those intervals were really hard. You just like don't know if you can do the other ones. Rather than, in some cases, rather than pushing yourself to do 4 and 5, just stop because you won't be able to recover from those next intervals. So uh, in this way you want to be able to maximize recovery time while like still getting the adaptations you want, because I want to emphasize the importance of maximizing recovery. If you can't recover from your sessions, then you can't stack your sessions. If you can't stack your sessions, you cannot improve, or it's much more difficult to improve and do so without injury. uh I don't want to say be lazy and just don't do the intervals because you don't feel like it, but like if you really, really, really like are like I'm not going to make it, that's when you would. I think, especially in this world, right, where there's hours of work to be done, there's kids, there's adulting, as you mentioned. Uh, the minimum effective dose is important so that you're not just adding junk for the sake of adding junk. An example would be, you know, zone two is also like a hot topic these days. Like, I need to get more zone two. I need to get more zone two. Yes. And depending on what you're training for, you might need that. But in other cases, you might not. And if your body is not getting any adaptation from it, it is just junk. Um, another example might be if you want to get stronger and you're trying to be you want to be a hybrid athlete, you want to get faster and you want to get stronger. Um, you probably just need to focus on the main core lifts, call it like deadlifts, squats, bench press, rows. Um, all the accessories that you're doing might just be junk that your body can't recover from in time to then do your hard interval session the next day for getting faster. Um, so I think that's the concept is just less is more in reality.
How, I mean, again, this is me coming from a place of like just natural curiosity. And, I think you kind of already hit on this a little bit. Like, I think our minds often want the easiest path forward, right?
Hmm.
And so there is that negotiation that happens if you're on a track interval workout where you're like, I don't want to do number six. Like, I
Yeah.
don't want to do 6, 7, 8, or whatever it is. How do you know personally, whether it be just from experience or research or maybe a coach, maybe it's the hybrid app, like, how are you making sure that you're not giving yourself an
Mm,
excuse like the out versus
yeah.
listening to your body and saying, no, really, I have hit the minimum effective dose and I am just listening to my body versus, yeah, like, I'm just going to take this easy because no one's watching anyway. And, you know,
Yeah, that is such a tough question. And you have to as the athlete have to understand you are putting in the work that you want to get out of it. I do think that there are some like metrics that you can look at, like heart rate, for example. It is biased depending on if it's hot outside, etc. But all assuming all else equal, that can be an important one. Where let's say you're doing these track intervals and your maybe your heart rate is like skyrocketing, but it's supposed to be a threshold interval. So what your heart rate actually looks like, it is a super high intensity, call it VO2 max interval. Okay, well, your body is now having probably a different adaptation than you intended. So that might be a time to take a step back. Or another example would be if you're on the bike and you're trying to output a certain amount of power and you physically cannot hang on, like you have to pause or stop. That might be another very clear indication it's probably time to either drop your power or do something else.
yeah, I want to say I think I recently listened to an episode where Sam Long gave an interview, and he talked about interval training. And I think he said something. If I'm not mistaken, I think he said you should feel at the end of your session that you have one or two left, like
Hmm.
that you
Yes.
could give that because yeah, like you said, like you never want to hit like the top end. Um, yeah,
Yeah, that's well said. It exactly. And that's a big concept and actually in the lifting side of things too. You never want to do, or I shouldn't say never, but you really rarely want to do full out max efforts because the recovery time is so like hard for that.
yeah, yeah. It's just like you can't if you can't do the next set, then
Correct.
it's like
Yeah.
too hard. And so maybe yeah, maybe for like everyday people, it's like either just do less reps, a little bit
Hmm.
slower, and just like figure that out. Where do you think coaching comes in on that? Um, and maybe this is just like a good transition to what you're building at Hybrid.
Hmm. Yeah, so I'll start with, well, we're building out hybrid. We do hyper personalized training plans. And really, what that looks like is a coach in your pocket. We have an agent that you can chat with. It's called Brain. I use Brain every day. Hey, I'm feeling like this today. Can you adjust my workouts? Or, I'm training for an Ironman. And for me right now, I want to focus on cycling. I don't really want to do much running because it's more impact on my body. So for the first 3 months, just do cycling and lifting. I'm a good swimmer, so honestly, I don't really train that much for swimming. Um, and that's how a hybrid works today, is it can build you these custom training plans, and then you can chat with a coach about it. So I think to answer the first part of the question of how do you like kind of manage this with a coach, um, I think you need the right structure and the right training plan for you, depending on your goal. And that's where coaches and AI coaches can come in and help, um, to make sure you have that right structure. And depending on people's experience and knowledge, uh, a coach might just be able to say, hey, you need to do an interval workout. And you can build from your repertoire of interval workouts. but there might be less experienced people that need to, well, what exactly do I do? What is an interval workout? How much? How, you know, fast do I go, etc. Um, so I think that's one avenue where coaches are very valuable. I think the second avenue is actually the motivation. They know you can do this. Like I've seen your stats. I know that you can add an extra interval here. Uh, I would continue with the plan and getting you on track. I think there's such a mindset aspect of coaching. Planning is one part and structure is one part, but I think the bigger aspect is the mental preparedness for that person to achieve their goal. I think that can be very difficult, and uh, that I think is a little bit actually on the more human side of coaching. But in both those scenarios, I think that's how you can get someone to achieve their goal.
Yeah, I want to kind of dive into this a little bit because I'm so fascinated with what you're building at Hybrid.
Hmm.
And when I actually first came across Hybrid, I downloaded the app. I was checking it out. I think I did the free trial, and then I had made my own AI plan. Using whatever AI it was. I can't even remember.
Yeah.
And this was pre-brain, right? So
Hmm.
I was like, okay, well, I'm just going to stick with my plan because I need the ability to adapt it. And
Yeah.
so I didn't use Hybrid. But since then, and so maybe I need to give Hybrid another shot. Like, you
Hmm.
have launched this new feature that you can chat with it and say, I'm just off today, or that was too
Hmm.
easy. How, maybe can you tell me a little bit more? Because again, I'm just pretty ignorant on how does brain work. Does brain
Hmm.
push you? Like, does brain push back a little bit and say, I've seen the stats, like, you're
Hmm.
okay? Or is it, because again, maybe just like the lay person, we always see the AI of like, it's just your best friend. It's like going to enable you. Yeah. How do you counteract that?
Yeah. So in short, since you've probably tried it, what we have launched is Brain, and it will adapt based on your workout. So if let's say you missed a workout, you'll get a notification saying, "Hey, you missed your workout. Like, let's reschedule it." And then based on what you've already done, it's like, I think that this should fit in here, similar to how a real coach would be like, "Okay, you missed this session. Maybe it's actually not important, so you can cut it. You can focus on your vacation if that's what you're doing, or
Mm,
hey, you are on your vacation, and we will update your plan because you only have a hotel gym rather than being able to be on the bike or something of that
hmm.
sort." Um, so as you do your workouts, it will be able to see what you've done and then recommend what you should do or what you should change, similar to how a human coach would. Um, uh,
That's actually really
so.
cool because I think that that's one of the things I've struggled with when I've done my own static plans, right? Like,
Mhm,
now I'll kind of take a knock at my own static plan is because I don't necessarily have a coach or the full breadth of experience. I always wonder, should I go back and do that workout?
mhm,
Or like what you were saying, sometimes I mm, everything that I've put in my workout plan has been pretty well researched.
mhm.
Um, and so I'm not going to say it's a perfect plan, but I feel like I have cut a lot of the junk. But I do think that like there are times where like that session isn't as key as the next session, and so if you are fatigued, just move on to the next. But
Mhm.
as the everyday average person, again, just entering a sport, like I actually just don't know that is true. I think that it's true, but I don't know that that's true.
Ex- Exactly. And I think life gets in the way. I have a plan that I like. I think it's structured very similar to yours. I change it every single week. Every single week at the beginning of the week, I'm like, well, actually, I need to move this and this and this because I have a dinner this night, or, we're traveling, whatever it is. So he might have the perfect plan, but most people don't have the perfect execution of that plan because life gets in the way. And I think that's really why we've built what we've built. Sure, you could probably ask ChatGPT or Claude or whatever your favorite agent is, what should I do instead? But it doesn't have the mechanism and the mechanics to automatically update and adapt your plan as you go and have that. I said mentioned motivation. Have that motivation of like, okay, we've seen you done this, like nice job. Now let's get ready for your interval workout tomorrow. Um, you can make your static plan with them, but it doesn't move with you. And I think that that's like a lot of the importance of hybrid brain and why we've built it, because that's what we want. That's like why we've built it, is we want this for ourselves, to be able to know, can we cut this session tomorrow or not? Or should we move things around? Should we dial it back? Being able to constantly chat with and discuss with a coach is very important, especially, I mean, we have big ambitious goals for our triathlons, and coaches can be really expensive. The human coaches can be very expensive,
Yep.
and talk about having to maybe like cut certain costs, or prioritize certain things. That This is where hybrid brain comes in.
Yeah, so I have two follow-up questions because I'm so curious about
Hmm.
how this use application would apply to someone like myself. My first one is, how much control of the plan would I have? So for example, I have somewhat optimized my schedule to know, like Mondays, like per day, like roughly, like
Hmm.
this is how I space it out. Um, could I type that into Brain and say I like to do my biking Monday, Wednesday, Friday, or
Hmm.
and then like I like to do my swims on these days? Would it build around that type of feedback,
Hmm.
or would it also recommend, like, actually you're having too much intensity too close?
It would do both of those things. So one, you would make the schedule that you want, and it will do that. But it would also suggest, hey, you don't have any swims on your calendar. You're doing a triathlon. I would really highly recommend you do swims at least once a week, or whatever the cadence is, and it would chat with you about your experience to understand, should you actually remove it or not. Um, Everything that we've built is based in sports science. We've worked with some sports scientists at the University of Utah, Anna Cruz, and one of our partners is Alex Viada and his team. And Alex Viada wrote the book, The Hybrid Athlete. So most people in the space know who he is. Crazy athlete, and we feel very strongly everything we do should be based in sports, real sports science, knowing the periodization, like how can you actually get faster and stronger at the same time. So brain, all it is to say is brain is based on all of this understanding and this data, to make sure that it has the proper recommendations for you, not just the ChatGPT and Claude and others can probably put together a plan for you. You probably have to do a lot of legwork and uh, asking that particular agent to cite its sources to make sure it is also giving you that same quality that hybrid brain would be.
Oh, 100%. I mean, that's what I had to do, right? I did
Yeah.
tens of, a bunch of hours of work, and then over a couple years to really inform, like, the philosophy that I was thinking was kind of,
Hmm.
sifting
Hmm.
through it all. Because there's, like you said, we live in a world where everyone wants to be an influencer, and some people
Right.
know what they're talking about, and like they are worth following, and some people are just copycatting, and like, or that what they're prescribing is a
Hmm.
sample size of one, right? Someone recently posted about this. If I can find it, I will post the reference to this, because it is just a sample size of one, and it worked for them, but it doesn't necessarily mean that they have the credentials to apply it to mass.
Hmm.
So that's really interesting, and I'll definitely have to give hybrid another try. I didn't probably give it the full fair try, to be honest, just because I was so new and like trying to test my own
Yeah.
thesis. But having that flexibility would be game changing, because again, like you said, life gets in the way, and you kind of have to have the plan adjust to you. The other question that I had was, how much other data are you like able to bring in? So like, the sleep scores, the HRVs,
Hmm.
because I think that's also what the other AI, like if you're just typing this into Claude or ChatGPT or Perplexity or whatever it be, right?
Yeah.
They don't have your historical data,
Hmm.
so there's
And
a huge missing context.
yeah, we can get your historical data with whatever integrations you integrate with. So whatever wearables you have, if you have wearables, we can get all of your past data, assuming you want us to. And then we are in the works of bringing in that other, like, the sleep scores, the recovery metrics, because that is important in deciding what your next workout should be, or how we should update your plan accordingly. uh, first is training metrics, and then second would be these recovery metrics that were in the works.
Cool. Yeah. Do you feel comfortable maybe talking about? I mean, I guess you kind of already referenced the origin for hybrid was you guys really just wanted to build the app that you wanted, right? It's like
Hmm.
it's it's somewhat of a mix of there's disparate apps out there doing these things individually, but there's really
Hmm.
not a lot of apps. At least there's none that come to my mind that are all in one for a hybrid athlete. It's kind of like, well, if you want a running plan, you either go to Runna, which is now owned by
Correct.
Strava. If you want a
Hmm.
swimming plan, you can go to My Swim Pro, or
Yeah.
if you want to work out, you can go to Fitbod. If you want, or Ladder, I guess is one that I've seen commercials
Hmm.
for recently. Um, but you guys are really like one of the only ones doing all in one. Is that right?
Yeah, I would say so. I think, and I've seen some smaller, very much smaller apps popping up that we would probably say is AI sloth. But others like us, we haven't really seen, and that's really why we wanted to build hybrid was because all of this data was living in separate apps, and we wanted to understand it in one place. There's no way for us to get all of our workout data in one place to understand the whole like training load on our body, and help us to get to that next level of whatever it is. Our founding team was four founding members. Three of us all used to work at Whoop, and then we worked at another company together as well. We all train in similar but somewhat different ways. We have some like lifters, uh, U.S. national rowing team, much more cardio focused. U.S. national rugby team, so more hybrid athlete focused. I've done triathlons, so we kind of have this mesh of different training, and we wanted to be able to compare different training information and scores, but we couldn't do that. And we also couldn't see our data. So that was the origination of hybrid and how we came to be. And we've gotten to this world in which what we actually want is a coach in your pocket. That's actually what we want, is to see all this workout data in one place and then be able to act on it. There's a lot of apps, to your point, that are like siloed in whether it's lifting or cardio, um, and they give you information, but they don't act on that.
Mm-hmm.
And that is a big missing piece for a lot of those. And we really want to make sure what we're giving you is important, and there's an action for you to do. There's something for you to do with it.
Yeah, well, I think it's really well timed. I think the hybrid athlete push or trend will prove not to be like a fad. I think that it's kind of going to be one of those things that is a mainstay.
Hmm.
So really excited about what you're building. And again, I re-downloaded the app this morning because
Excellent.
I've seen what you guys have been doing with the brain functions, and that definitely kind of scratched the itch that was missing for me initially. Um, so who's
Yeah.
yeah,
I
oh,
was, I
yeah.
was to say that's awesome. We're building really quickly, so there's new features coming out all the time, and we love to hear people's feedback and build for them. We want to build with people and build what they want as well as what we want. So yeah, definitely excited that you downloaded again. We love to offer anyone listening a discount to hybrid. So I'll share the details with you, and you can share them with the links as well.
Yeah. I'll add that. Thank you for doing that. I'll add that to kind of post production. I'll put the link in the show notes. Um, so really quickly, you mentioned this. Who's the best hybrid athlete on your team?
Um, well, technically, we have a hybrid score, which is based on your cardio metrics and your lifting metrics. What's the for your age, weight, and gender? We normalize it. Where do you fall? Where do you stand? Technically, I have the highest hybrid score. Um, so that would be
Objectively
me.
speaking, okay. No,
Objective, yeah, it is objective. The
that's
most
great.
well-rounded.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Okay, well, what advice outside of what we've already talked about would you give the everyday athlete looking to improve? Download hybrid is one of them. It sounds like.
Absolutely. Download hybrid and consistency. That's really the only thing that matters. And something that we like to say is hybrid is for serious athletes, but serious means you are committed. You might be going from a couch to a 5K, but you're serious about doing that. That is consistency. You want to be consistent. Or and you might be a serious athlete like myself, who I'm training for my second Ironman, but I'm serious about doing it. So I think, are you, if you want to improve, are you serious about doing it? AKA, are you committed to making the effort, to have the consistency.
I love it. Well, Shu, thank you so much for your time. I have thoroughly enjoyed this conversation. There's like a lot of wisdom in what you've shared. So thank you so much.
No, likewise, really appreciate you having me on. Love to discuss these things.
Thank you for listening to the Racing Time podcast. If you liked today's episode, please rate, leave a comment, follow, and share the show with a friend. This is greatly appreciated. If you would like to try the hybrid training app, use the code RacingTime25 for a 25% discount. I've also included a link in the show notes that automatically applies the 25% discount for your convenience. I will also note that this interview happened a few weeks ago, and since then I have uploaded my full training plan into the hybrid training app. And I will say that the track interval sessions have been some of my favorite workouts this year. And the ability to customize strength training and other sessions to match the equipment available or the time that I have in the day on the fly has been really convenient. I recommend hybrid for anyone who is looking for an inexpensive way to get a customized training plan that will adapt to your fitness level and to your busy schedule. This week's kudos go to former guest Christian Allen for adding 2 more top 10 finishes this weekend at the Broken Arrow Ascent and 23K. If you would like to come on the show as a featured athlete, have a guest recommendation, or simply would like to connect and or share a major milestone, please email me at nathan@localtriclub.com. I'd also love to connect with you on Strava. Links to my personal pages and the growing local Tri Club community are in the show notes. Music credits are also in the show notes. Thank you, and see you next time.